Well, who would have thunk it? Orange and blue today, Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason. And that's right. You see the beautiful thumbnail done by one at Mace Denver. The strength of the team, Mace. If we had this conversation in August, and we've had plenty of conversations on this show, the strength of the team, the guys up front, the offensive line, who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought it? It's been a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you could talk about the Broncos offensive line being one of the strong points on the roster?
The Ryan days when they had Ryan Harris and Ryan Clady as bookends.
Oh, so you'd have to go back to
that's a while.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have been 15.
No,
because
not that year.
Ryan Harris helped replace Ryan Clady when Clady tore his ACL.
A very important piece
in off-season work.
Mm-hmm.
You basically, that's like Josh McDaniels era then. First year of John Fox.
Yeah.
Or not even first year of John Fox. I think I have to look back and see if Ryan Harris was still a Bronco in 2011.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
But either way, it's been a while.
I think he wasn't, because I think Orlando Franklin was the tackle.
Yes, that's right.
Tackle back then.
Yes,
so,
yes, okay.
Yeah. So basically the Josh McDaniels era and the late Mike Shanahan era as the last time the offensive line was a strong point.
Do you
of the
agree
Broncos.
with that date?
I think the offensive line was pretty good through the 2014 season. 2015, Clady got hurt in the offseason.
Right.
They brought in Evan Mathis in training camp, and he did all right at guard. But that was the point where you had Mathis, and they were having to kind of baby him through the season with his injuries.
Right.
Lou Vasquez at the other guard spot, same thing, kind of figuring it through. It was very much duct tape and baling wire at that moment. So I'd say you probably have to go back to 14 and maybe even 13, even though Clay didn't play that. You remember Chris Clark came in for him.
Right.
And when you had Franklin at right tackle, Zane Beadles was there. I believe in 13, Zane Beadles, I believe he was a Pro Bowler that year, and Lou Vasquez, the only all-pro guard in Broncos history. So literally we're talking about nearly a decade since the Broncos had an offensive line that was really a plus on their team as it is today.
Yeah, and I remember Evan Mathis, and I was going to bring up Mathis because you and I were in the locker room, and Mathis's back of his entire thigh, that hamstring, was black and blue.
Yes.
Entire back of his leg was black and blue. It was the color of my sweater. It was the color of your jacket, Mace.
Like this shade of blue?
It was pretty blue.
Yeah.
It was pretty dark, that's for sure.
And that was part of the reason why I only made it through one season here. But hey, you know what? He got his ring.
Right.
Everything worked out, but it's been pretty rough. The revolving door at right tackle has basically symbolized the instability across the offensive line and the struggles across the offensive line. But now here we are. We are heading into the 9th game. And I mentioned instability because let's talk about stability. Because the first thing that is going on here, it's the old cliche, the best ability is availability.
Mm-hmm.
You've had the same starting offensive line for every game this year. Last year, I mean, it wasn't the case. I believe they had, 10 different starting offensive line combinations last year? This year, it's just been 1 through 8 games. I mean,
knock on wood.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
I keep saying through a certain amount of games because you don't want to presume and you don't want to, have the broadcasters jinx, as it were.
Right.
But that's a huge reason why you're getting better results. And yes, I know Mike McGlinchey, there were some struggles over the course of the year. I thought he had his best game against Kansas City right before the bye. And he started playing to the value of that contract in that game. There are some good things. There obviously starts with run blocking, but even in pass protection, it's going well. Don't get deceived by the sack total. Okay. And this is one of the things you learn very early on when you cover football. Sacks are not always on the offensive line. They're not always on the protection.
Yes.
The quarterback is culpable. And I think we're actually looking at a situation this year where I'd say at least half the sacks being allowed by the Broncos are actually on the quarterback.
Honestly, it might be about 60%. If I were to guess right now, just based on how Russell Wilson holds onto the ball, which Mace leads us back to why they're running the ball and they're using short stuff just to get rid of the ball. Hey, Russ, you're going to get rid of it quickly because every pass is behind the line of scrimmage.
Either that or it's more than 15 yards down the line of scrimmage, which is beyond the line of scrimmage, which is brings the play action into play, which you can get going when you run the ball. It's, it's everything has rhythm and echoes if this is going to work.
You sound like George Lucas when you say that. The prequels are supposed to echo the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Not very well. Attack of the Clones.
Obi-Wan would be quite upset.
I don't like sand. God.
I like the way the Broncos are playing, though.
Oh, the old Harrison Ford line. George, you can write this bleep, but you can't say this bleep.
Well, Sean Payton's been writing a game plan, which now includes what they honestly should have been doing the whole time, but it works to the strengths of the team, which, yes, can be the offensive line. And I believe they're one of 4 teams, Mace, correct me if I'm wrong. Pro Football Focus, everybody hates them, but PFF has them graded as a top 10 run blocking unit and a top 10 pass blocking unit. Yes, not all those sacks that you see collected on Sundays are the responsibility of the offensive line. They might get blamed for it. But this is why, and I said this, I believe, on Monday when you were traveling, I said, the old excuse of the offensive line, you got to put that away. That's not a reason why for their struggling play. It doesn't mean the O-line can't struggle. There's some plays. McGlinchey needs to be better, etc. But this whole the reason they're struggling is because the O-line stinks. That's so fetch. That's an old thing, Mace. We got to talk about new stuff, and that is this improved offensive line.
They're actually 13th in pass blocking grade, and they're 11th in run blocking grade.
Okay, so it must have been 2 in the top 15 or whatever.
Yes.
Something like that.
But the thing is, it's pretty balanced. And look, as far as the offensive line not being an excuse anymore and actually being something that's becoming a strong point, this actually illuminates the quarterback discussion even beyond this season a bit more, because what do we hear so often that you don't want to put a young quarterback behind that offensive line, they're going to get killed. If you put a young quarterback behind this offensive line, is it the number 1 offensive line league? Is it the Philadelphia Eagles right now? No one's saying that. Philadelphia, by the way, they are 6th in pass blocking, and they are number 1 in run blocking. Okay. So they're not Jason Kelce and company, right? Doesn't mean they're not good, and doesn't mean they're not enough to where you could throw a name out there. You could draft Michael Penix Jr. Somewhere in the middle third of the first round, and he'd have a puncher's chance because that line should be good enough to do what you need to do.
Right.
And keep the quarterback upright.
Well, and I love what Quinn Miners said to the media yesterday and talking about confidence in between plays, right? Unprompted, he brought up how they're feeling good about each other, going back and talking about sets. And this goes back to our Vance Joseph conversation from yesterday.
Yeah.
When you have a coach that you can connect with and a coach that listens to you, it allows you the freedom to play your best football. And I really feel that Zach Strief, who we've taken 8 minutes to bring up his name, Mace, that's a big reason why these changes we're seeing, in addition to the health.
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, you sometimes have a situation where a player who's not very far, a coach who's not very far removed from his playing career, sometimes struggles to kind of have that proper gap and between oneself and the players that they're coaching. That maybe they're too much of a player's coach, basically.
Right.
What you have, I think, with Zach Strief is somebody who's threading a needle pretty nicely of having respect from the players that are under his command, but being relatively close to his playing days, he can see things as they saw them, as he saw it, and then how his players are seeing it now, and then can relate to them. The other thing that also works on Zach Strief, I mean, last year, how many times we talk about Butch Berry and his coaching style and how it didn't work.
Right.
And very telling that on the first day that Jerry Rossberg ran the show as interim head coach, there were 2 coaches that were gone, ziggied. One, of course, was Dwayne Stukes, special teams coordinator. The other was Butch Berry, the offensive line coach. Wasn't working. In particular, even though this player had an injury early in the season wasn't working for Garrett Bowles.
Right.
Garrett Bowles is the kind of player who needs the arm around the shoulders more.
You're right.
Okay.
Pat on the back, not the kick in the butt.
Well, Zach Strief, he's a lot more like Mike Munchak. Someone who played the game, understands technique, but is much more holistic, empathetic in his approach.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, Garrett Bowles is having his best season since 2020.
Right.
To where the conversation that we had about Bowles and his contract and, oh, you're going to move on from him after this season, I don't think it is the same opening shut thing as it once was. I think we're very much in the realm where we could be talking about a restructure that adds years to Garrett Bowles the way he's playing right now.
Yes, and adds well-deserved time and more money to Garrett Bowles' contract. We could be seeing that. And also what we get, Zach Strief, is a guy that knows how to deal with Sean Payton. Because dealing with Sean Payton is something, and he
played his entire career for Sean Payton, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And he can go to his guys and be like, man, that's Sean. You know what I mean? It's kind of, again, that buffer.
The good cop, bad cop.
Right.
You do need a good cop, bad cop. And basically,
Sean Payton's the bad cop.
Yeah, if the bad cop is the coach, you need a bunch of good cops because they're working with different parts of the roster, right?
Right.
And, Zach Strief has the offensive line, but it's one of the better performing units in the league and one of the better performing units on the team. And Strief's approach, I think, has a lot to do with that. And remember, for Zach Strief, this is the first time he's been the head O-line coach. He's been the assistant O-line coach. So he was making a level jump to supervise the entire position group. So far, so good.
And one thing I like about Quinn Miners, who's been outstanding, if we were to rank the offensive linemen, Ben Powers would be number 1 for me. Miners would be number 2. And the thing I like is I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with Butch Berry, but he almost lost a year of development. Like just the mistake of Nathaniel Hackett is one thing. The mistake and the sins of Butch Berry and having that lost year of development for a guy like Quinn Miners who needed it.
And tried to make him into a different body type.
Yep.
Remember the whole thing? The belly is slimmed down last year.
Right. Put the belly away.
Well, he's got that center of gravity coming back. He doesn't like to talk about it, so we're not going to talk about that much.
Right. I don't like to talk about my flair.
What we can talk about, what Quinn Miners is happy to talk about, though, are the technical enhancements, the technical growth that he has made from last year, this year under Zach Strief. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
With Coach Strief, I've really learned how to move more efficiently. I think that is something that he did really well in his career, and I think that's really helped me develop as a player, being more consistent. And that's kind of been a common theme with me of trying to develop in the NFL, is to continue to grow on my consistency. My rookie year, I had lots of highs and lows, and last year it was starting to slim down a little bit, but now I'm just being a lot more calculated with how I use my feet and how I use my hands, and being more calculated with my decisions and my everything else.
Just think about what Miners just said. Again, a lot packed into that statement. And Mace, it's one of the reasons why I'm not sucking up to Mark Schlereth. Okay. Matthew just got excited because I brought up Mark Schlereth, but I love Stink and I love all our offensive line friends. They're some of the smartest on the field. And you just listen to what Quinn said about how he's thinking about placement of his hands, of his feet. The actual technique isn't just muscle memory. It's thoughts and how to attack an opponent with varying styles and varying downs.
And being able to read the intent of an opposing defensive lineman or an opposing edge rusher if you're out there playing tackle pre-snap. Being able to have some tells, because there will be tells that are given from time to time,
right,
alignment wise. So this is high level stuff that eluded the Broncos last year. Now, that being said, no favors were done by injuries. I mean, Quinn Miners was out for a few weeks early last season. Garrett Bowles was done after 5 games when he had a fractured leg. They were shuffling tackles. Dalton Reisner was battling injuries, and then he ended up missing the end of the season. The group, they had 8 different players start at one point or another, I believe. And actually, 8, maybe it was more than that. Hang on, Glasgow, Cushenberry, Reisner, Wattenberg, Miners. Glasgow made 2 positions. Calvin Anderson, Cam Fleming, Garrett Bowles. Okay, I think it was 8. Or no, 9. Quinn Bailey, I think.
9. Right.
Quinn Bailey started at the very end. So 9. 9 times.
Matthew's like,
Oh,
what are you
come
old
on.
guys talking about? It's
Well,
Ferris Bueller's
if
Day
you
Off,
weren't
Matthew.
around in the
Watch
80s,
it.
you don't get it when we say 9 times.
Which
9 times. 9 times the Broncos had
9
a
times.
different offensive line in there.
Mhm.
Okay.
And my final Butchberry thought, just because it's relevant to what we're talking about, Mace, and you can continue on it if you'd like. I've heard from people that when Quinn Miners had something to work on last year, he would go to his coach, Butch Berry, and say, well, Coach, you want, and his coach would say, almost direct quote, just do it blanking different. Not actual coaching.
Not telling him
just
how to do
yelling
it different.
Right,
just,
right. Yelling at him and
Yeah.
saying, just do it blanking different. That's not coaching. Okay. Verbal abuse is not coaching. Butch Berry was not coaching. Zach Strief is coaching.
Well, the best coaching is teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can say this for Sean Payton, for example. I mean, we know that he can be hard on his team, hard on his players. Watch the way that he will stop practice to work on a specific in-game situational concept. And there's not a lot of yelling. I mean, he's forceful, but it's not abusive. It's teaching, right? Ultimately, the best coaches are the ones that teach. And a teaching style does not involve ranting and raving, right?
Mm-hmm.
It involves actually explaining, providing illustrations, examples, and also doing it in an engaging manner, right? That allows everyone to ingest the information. And then it's on the student, the pupil, the player to take it and apply that knowledge out there.
Right.
Some can, some can't. To his credit, Quinn Miners is one of those who can, and this is why we're talking about him not only playing really well this year, but if we're looking over the horizon, somebody that is probably going to be extended by the Broncos at some point in the next 18 months. We talked about it yesterday. I'll just go back to it today. Very significant. Then on a day yesterday when the big story was the Broncos are getting a new facility, 2 players they had up there, Quinn Miners, Pat Surtain, both 2021 draft picks, both very much in line to get contract extensions and thus be on the roster when that new building opens out at Broncos HQ in 2026.
Right. And I'm very proud, that's on a personal note, Mace, because I know teams that made fun of the Broncos for drafting Quinn Miners. You and I were at the Senior Bowl.
Did they not watch how he looked that week if they were making fun of him?
Well,
I mean, he was with
a broken thumb.
Yeah, with a broken thumb, he was the most physically overpowering offensive lineman out there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy who had not played the previous season because there was no Division III football because of the COVID year. So he's going up against players who had seasons under their belt because they were Division I.
Right.
He's Division III, non-scholarship level, going up against these guys from the SEC and the Big Ten.
Big Ten, right.
And he's dominating them with a broken thumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it'll go into a larger conversation about what some think of those all-star weeks. You and I put the proper amount of importance on it, but you see the young talent, you see the year lost with Butch Berry, but now you see the development into a really exceptional guard.
Yeah. Someone who should be around for a while here. I mean, actually, the interesting question is going to be at center because that's the imminent contract situation with Lloyd Cushenberry. And there are people, younger players that the Broncos think highly of.
Alex Forsyth.
Luke Wattenberg.
Is Wattenberg the answer?
They like the way he's developing.
Okay. He's been rough when he's been out there.
Well, last year. But again,
that was
let's
last
go back
year
to the
with
whole
Butch Berry.
teaching thing, right?
Right.
Did everyone just kind of lose a year
Ding,
because
ding,
you had
ding,
a
ding, ding,
screamer
ding.
instead of a teacher coaching the offensive line?
A screamer. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I don't like screamers in terms of teaching. I mean, it's fine to scream in some other realms, but not in teaching.
Right. And Wattenberg, Alex Forsyth, who are just a friend, Emery Hunt, top draft analyst out there, had Forsyth as his number 1 center. And I appreciate Emery. I've known Emery since he was a teenager, basically. Like, I appreciate him so very much. don't agree with Forsyth being the number one center last year, but this is the type of talent that was added, that is developing. But Lloyd Cushenberry has gone from a problem to fixing his issues this year.
He has. Now, the question is he back? Now, this is also where I think the Broncos' long-term planning comes into play. If you do go young quarterback, I don't like the idea of a young center with a young quarterback. And we saw that in 2020, a young Lloyd Cushenberry, then a rookie, with Drew Lock, who was basically in his first full season as a starter, 5 starts the previous season. That's not a combination that works. But if you have a young center and a veteran quarterback, Matt Paradis and Peyton Manning back in 2015, for example, that works. Or a veteran center and a young quarterback. So personally, if you move on from Russell Wilson in the offseason, I am not thrilled with the notion of young QB, young center. That's a lot to kind of come together. But there are some who believe that growing together yields better results in the long term. So that's something that is something to think about. But we'll see.
Yeah, and if Miners gets paid, that's going to limit Cushenberry and what's available for him. So some tough decisions will be made, but the decisions that they've made, and listen, you and I both appreciate Dalton Reisner a ton. Super happy to see him have success with Minnesota. But going from Reisner to Powers, that's an upgrade. The development of Miners there. Cushenberry's gotten better this year. McGlinchey's better than what he's playing. And Garrett Bowles has been really good. Not COVID year, no fans in the stands, good, but like he's been good.
He's been good. And actually showing some leadership qualities up there too. And that's where I wonder if Mike McGlinchey's rubbing off on him. Because even though the season's been a struggle for McGlinchey, one thing that is evident is how much of a leader he is in that locker room. And that is something that I think gives him value even when he was struggling, even when he had the false starts, he was getting beaten past pro. The other thing also is he did have that knee sprain back in training camp. I think that had an effect on him. Now we're 3 months out from that. I'd like to see how he looks in Buffalo next week. Believe it or not, for the offense and the offensive line, Buffalo represents a confidence-building game. Even though the Bills are a legit playoff contender and they've been a legit Super Bowl contender the last few years, it's a defense that's got a lot of injuries right now. They're working Von Miller back in, but he does not yet look like himself on the edge. This is an opportunity, I think, for the Broncos on the offensive line to stack another good game and another game where they control the rhythm and tempo of the contest.
Let's make it 3 in a row. I will say this.
Wouldn't that be something?
There's a huge test in just a couple weeks.
Against Cleveland's defense. Now, Cleveland's defense is legit.
Yeah.
That's for real.
If you can build that confidence over the next couple of games and win those next couple of games, you go up against Cleveland.
Against 2 shaky defense. Buffalo,
yes,
shaky because of injuries. Minnesota, it's just been
shaky, period.
Ragged for years now. But then you go play Cleveland. That's when things change. It's weird to talk about Cleveland, the Browns, having something that's a huge positive attribute. By the way, speaking of the Browns, is this shirt red or orange?
It looks red to me.
Okay. All right.
Why? Is it not red?
Okay. I've had this shirt for a long time.
Okay.
And I thought it was orange. I thought it was burnt orange.
Okay. No, it's red, bro.
You're saying
it's
red.
I'm
hearing red.
It's red.
Oh, I'm hearing red from you. I'm hearing red on the interwebs and all that. Yeah. Okay. Fine. I guess it's red.
It's red.
I thought it was orange.
Okay.
Thought it was like burnt orange, like a dark burnt orange.
Because then you could do orange and blue in the same outfit. See, yes. I'm just wearing blue today.
And it wasn't my first choice shirt. I was supposed to have another shirt. I brought it with me. I thought I brought it with me instead, sitting at home. I have been told this shirt is ugly.
What?
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree though.
I mean, it's just a plain shirt, so.
I know, but I'm not sure it goes with this jacket.
Now, Swink, you're not helping. He says it's reddish burnt orange.
But okay. See, okay, you see orange there, and I get it's not that shade of orange on the sign, okay?
Or this shade of orange. See, you could like compare, contrast.
By the way, how are these, These are monster. Because is this different than the white? Oh, it's Ultra Sunrise. So it's a different
different flavor.
Different flavor.
Yeah, no sugar, no calories.
Does it taste good?
You want to crack it open? I got more in the truck, baby.
No, I wouldn't crack it open. I would take it home and chill it and put it in my fridge. I wouldn't
Take it
crack it
home.
open right now.
Take it home.
Are you
Tell
sure?
me what you think.
Are you
Tell me
sure?
what you think. Now he owes me a monster and tacos.
Oh gosh, this is going to be a
Matthew owes me 2. Anyway,
Yeah.
Look at Matthew. He's like,
so
I
there.
didn't do anything.
Now I have a. Now I might
To go with your not orange shirt.
I might have to borrow a couple more from you. Actually,
Oh boy.
maybe. How many do you have in your truck anyway?
3.
Can I get another one? At least one other?
Get
up
a
this-
purple one and a white one.
So you have different colors.
yeah, different flavors.
So you have orange, purple, and white.
yes.
That's like Phoenix Suns colors.
I knew he'd get it. He got it. Everybody, that's a wrap for today's Orange and Blue Today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason. You follow Mace on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammy. Matthew, are you on Twitter? Matthew is above the Twitter.
Are you on X, Instagram, Twitter,
Follow Matthew.
Inner Google?
I can't spell his last name. Anyway, we appreciate you all for watching. Make sure to do the YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Mace. I'm Cease. OBT is a BFD. We appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty,